My name is Alana Brooks. I'm 33 years old, and I've spent the last decade fighting for justice. But nothing prepared me for the moment justice demanded I break the very laws I swore to uphold. 3 days ago, my older sister, my only sister, stumbled into my office so bruised, so swollen, so utterly broken that for a moment, I didn't even recognize her. Her name is Riley Brooks. She's 35, a nurse, a mother, a woman whose laughter used to fill every room she walked into. And when she finally lifted her face to me that day, her left eye purple black, her lip cracked and trembling, her wrist visibly swollen, something inside me snapped so violently, I swear I heard it. "I tried to leave," she whispered, "but he said if I go, he'll kill me. And he will, Alana. He will." Her husband's name is Damian Carter, a charming, successful former college basketball star turned real estate consultant. The kind of man who shakes hands with judges at charity galas. The kind of man who knows exactly how to smile in public and terrorize in private. And on Tuesday afternoon, as Riley stood trembling in my doorway, I made a decision I knew I couldn't take back. I decided to take her place, to become Riley for 3 days, to step into the home where she had been tortured for nearly 4 years, and to make sure the man who hurt her never forgot what it felt like when someone finally fought back. But before I tell you what happened in that house, you need to understand who Riley and I really are. We weren't just sisters. We were the Brooks twins. Not identical, but close enough that strangers often mixed us up. Same height, similar curls, same brown eyes. Growing up, people joked that Riley got the sunshine and I got the storm. She was warm, soft, gentle, the kind soul who rescued injured birds and hugged stray dogs. I was sharp, blunt, unyielding, the girl who jumped into fights that weren't hers and never backed down. She worked in pediatrics. I became a prosecutor. She healed small bodies. I put violent ones behind bars. Our paths split after college. I moved to the city. Riley stayed in our hometown, working at the hospital, building the quiet life she'd always wanted. And that's when she met Damien, a man whose mask I should have seen through. But I was too buried in motions, trials, and case files to read the warning signs. The red flags I ignored. At first, Damien seemed perfect, handsome, polite, always quick with compliments. He charmed our mother, impressed our cousins, donated to her workplace fundraisers. But once they married, the changes were subtle. Riley stopped wearing bright colors. She started canceling our weekly calls. She always seemed tired. And when she laughed, it didn't reach her eyes anymore. Then came the baby, my nephew, Elias, now 4 years old. A sweet boy with dimples and curls that mirrored Riley's. But after his birth, her communications grew even more infrequent. I blamed motherhood. I blamed long shifts. I blamed everything except the truth. My sister was being crushed under the weight of a man who needed control more than he needed love. And I didn't see it. Not until she showed up at my office 3 days ago. The day everything changed. My secretary buzzed into my office around 1 p.m. "Ms. Brooks, your sister is here, and she looks not well." I stood so fast my chair nearly toppled. Riley entered, wearing oversized sunglasses, a hoodie, despite 90-degree heat jeans that concealed more than they revealed, and a tremor running through her entire body. "Take off the glasses," I said. She hesitated. "Riley, take them off." When she did, I sucked in a breath so sharp the room spun. Her left cheek was split. Her eye was swollen shut. Her jaw was bruised. Her neck had fingerprints, literal fingerprints, stained across her skin. I'd cross-examined murderers who left fewer marks. Who did this? I didn't need her answer. I already knew. "Please don't call the police," she whispered. "He said if I ever told anyone, he'd kill me, and he means it." That's when I locked my office door. Roll up your sleeves. She refused, so I rolled them up myself. Her arms were a map of hell. Blue, purple, yellow bruises layered over each other. Belt marks, fresh cuts, old scars, and burns, likely from a lighter or cigarettes. When I reached her wrist and saw rope burns, I felt my vision go red. He tied you up? She nodded. How long? Her voice cracked. 4 years. 4 years. 4 years my sister lived in a private prison while I argued cases about justice and fairness in courtrooms. 4 years I didn't see it. 4 years she endured what no one should ever endure. And in that moment, standing in my office, staring at the damage someone she loved had inflicted, I felt something deep inside me shift. A coldness, a purpose, a clarity sharper than any legal strategy I'd ever crafted. Riley, I said softly, you're not going back there. But, no, you're not. I took her hands in mine. You're going to stay in my apartment, and I'm going to be you. Her head jerked up. What? I'm going to your house. I'm going to step into your life for 72 hours. And Damien Carter is going to learn exactly what it feels like when the prey stops running and turns around. She shook her head, terrified. He'll hurt you. No, I said, my voice calm and cold. He'll try. That's very different. What Riley had forgotten was that while she healed people, I prosecuted men like Damien for a living. I knew their patterns, their arrogance, their blind confidence, their predictable violence. And what he didn't know was that I wasn't Riley. Not even close. How the plan began. That evening, I drove Riley to my apartment, tucked her into my bed, gave her food, water, quiet and safety she hadn't felt in years. I kissed her forehead. Sleep. I'll handle the rest. Then I took her ID, her keys, her clothes, and drove to the life she was running from. Her house stood on a manicured suburban street, white fence, trimmed hedges, the illusion of perfection. But the moment I stepped inside, it felt like walking into a tomb. Dark, heavy. The air itself carried fear. Damien's mother, Patricia, was the first voice I heard. Riley, where have you been? Dinner isn't done, and Damien gets home in 40 minutes. Then came Jenna, his sister. Oh, look who decided to show up. About time. Make me coffee. The entitlement, the venom, the arrogance. It was unbelievable. And they didn't even know I wasn't Riley yet. I played along, shoulders small, voice soft, footsteps quiet, just like Riley. But inside I was a loaded weapon waiting to go off. The first shift in power. Around 7:50 p.m., I heard the garage door rumble open. A cold thrill shot down my spine. Damien was home. The man who had destroyed my sister was seconds away from standing in front of me, thinking I was her. He walked in with the swagger of a man who believed he owned every inch of space around him. 6'3", athletic build, expensive watch, smell of cologne mixed with whiskey. Riley, he barked. Where's my damn dinner? I set the plate down calmly. It's right here. He tasted it. His lip curled. This is trash. Can't you do anything right? Patricia chimed in immediately. Jenna laughed. Damien stood, rage radiating off him, stepping toward me the same way he had stepped toward Riley 1,000 times. He raised his hand. I didn't flinch. I didn't cower. I caught his wrist midair. His shock was instant, delicious, and deeply satisfying. What the? I squeezed. Firm, controlled, intentional. Not tonight, I said quietly, and not ever again. He stared at me like he was seeing his wife for the first time in years and realizing she was no longer who he thought she was. I released him and walked away, leaving him standing there, confused, humiliated, and terrified. For the first time since I'd stepped into that tomb of a house, the silence was on my side. Damien stood in the kitchen doorway, stunned that the woman he dominated for 4 years had just stopped his favorite ritual midair. Patricia's wine glass hovered in her hand, frozen halfway to her lips. Jenna had her mouth open like she'd forgotten how to breathe. I didn't look back. I didn't acknowledge the shock. I simply climbed the stairs, my body steady, my mind razor sharp. I walked into Elias's room. He was sitting on the rug, quietly coloring. He looked up, unsure. Children always know when something isn't right. They feel tension the way animals feel earthquakes before they hit. "Auntie?" he whispered. His voice cracked something inside me. I wasn't his aunt, not tonight. But God, I wished I could tell him I was here to protect him. Instead, I knelt beside him and said the softest, "Hey, baby," I could manage without my rage leaking through. He wrapped his arms around my neck with a desperation that made my chest tighten. He was trembling. Tiny, frightened tremors. He shouldn't have known fear at 4 years old. No child should. I held him close for a long time, long enough that the chaos downstairs faded into nothing. "Are you hungry?" I asked. He nodded. I took him downstairs, ignoring Patricia's glare. Heated up leftovers because Riley told me that when she didn't cook, he didn't eat, which meant sometimes neither did her son. Elias scarfed the food like he hadn't eaten well in days. And Damien? He stood by the counter watching me with narrowed eyes, rubbing his wrist. He was beginning to understand that Riley wasn't the same. Good. Let that confusion sink in. Let it rot inside him. The first night. After putting Elias to bed, I entered Riley's bedroom and closed the door behind me. I'd installed a hidden camera earlier that afternoon. My plan had begun long before I stepped into this house. My recording devices were small, disguised, and impossible to spot unless you knew where to look. Evidence. Everything came down to evidence. Damien stormed in 20 minutes later without knocking. "Who the hell do you think you are?" he hissed. I looked up from the dresser, calm, steady, completely unimpressed. "What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb with me, Riley. What was that downstairs?" "What was what?" I asked. His face twisted. "You looked me in the eye. You grabbed me. You disrespected me." I interrupted him. Something Riley had never done. "Damien, I'm tired." He froze mid-rant. "Tired? Of what?" "Everything." He blinked, thrown off just enough for me to take one step forward. "One day you might realize your fists didn't make you a man. They made you a coward." His jaw clenched so hard his teeth scraped. He lunged forward and grabbed my arm. Perfect. I needed physical contact. I needed proof. And the hidden camera behind the curtain caught all of it. "Let go," I said evenly. He squeezed harder. "You forget your place again, and I twisted my arm free in a single practiced move and stepped back. Damien stumbled, shock flashing across his face. For years, he'd counted on fear paralyzing Riley. He had no idea how to handle resistance. "You're acting crazy," he snapped. "Don't push me." I tilted my head. "Then stop pushing me." His nostrils flared. His knuckles whitened. His whole body trembled with the effort it took not to strike. Because the dynamic had shifted. And deep down, he knew it. He left the room with a slam so loud the walls shook. 3 seconds later, Patricia's hiss traveled up the stairs. "She's losing her mind. Damien, you better fix this." I smiled, slow and cold. Let them think I'd lost my mind. Let them think I was unpredictable. Unpredictable is dangerous. Unpredictable is power. Riley had been predictable, quiet, small, afraid. I wasn't. Morning tension. At sunrise, I prepared breakfast for Elias and walked him to the bus stop. He clung to my hand like a lifeline. When his bus pulled away, I saw movement through the blinds back home. Patricia, watching, always watching. Good. Let her. Back inside, she and Jenna were already in the kitchen. Patricia sneered. You didn't clean the counters. I wiped one crumb with exaggerated slowness. Jenna scoffed. You starting something? I looked at them both. Really looked. Patricia, thin, pinched face, tight bun, too much judgment and too little humanity. Jenna, laziness and bitterness wrapped in one entitled package. Both of them had contributed to Riley's terror. Both of them had allowed a woman to be beaten under their roof. I stepped closer. No, I said quietly, but you might be. Jenna took one step forward, trying to stand taller. What's that supposed to mean? Exactly what it sounded like. Her face reddened. Patricia slammed her hand on the counter. You do not talk to us like that. Why? I asked. You talk to Riley however you want, don't you? Their eyes widened, a flash of fear. Patricia recovered fast. You're unbalanced. Maybe you need to rest. You're acting off, I smiled, and you're acting like someone who's nervous I might finally be paying attention. Their faces hardened. I poured myself coffee and made sure to add nothing they touched. Because if these women were anything like the ones from my cases, they'd resort to sabotage before they resorted to reflection. The talk. Jenna wanted. Around noon, Jenna cornered me in the hallway while Patricia accidentally blocked the exit behind me. Classic 2-on-1 intimidation tactic. Riley, Jenna said, voice dripping condescension, you need to apologize to Damien. Last night was unacceptable. He works hard. You know that. I laughed softly, and the sound unsettled her. You think this is funny? She snapped. Yes, I said. You lecturing me about what's acceptable is hilarious. Her jaw clicked like something inside it cracked. Patricia leaned in close. We run this home, Riley. Damien expects order. Respect. Abuse, I corrected. Say the word. They flinched. Damien does not abuse anyone, Patricia spat. So the bruises are, what, modern art? Patricia reached out and shoved me. A test, to see if I'd react. I didn't move an inch. Don't touch me again, I said quietly. She lifted her chin. Or what? I stepped forward, invading her space, lowering my voice to the exact pitch that rattles a guilty conscience. Or you'll find out what happens when a woman stops being afraid. Her face drained of color. Jenna's mouth snapped shut. I walked past them, letting my shoulder brush Patricia's lightly, just enough to show she didn't scare me, just enough to fuel their paranoia. And as I left, I heard Patricia whisper, She's changing. Something is wrong with her. Jenna whispered back, Damien needs to handle it before she ruins everything. Good. Let them panic. Let them scramble. Fear makes people sloppy, and sloppy people make mistakes. Mistakes I could use. Damien's morning ambush. At 1 p.m., Damien came home unexpectedly early. He stormed into the kitchen like a thundercloud. Get upstairs. Now. I followed him into the bedroom. The camera rolled. He shut the door. What the hell is going on with you, Riley? I'm not playing this game anymore, I said. He stepped so close I could smell alcohol on his breath. You embarrass me again, and I interrupted him. You'll what? Hit me? A pause. You've done it before. He froze. Riley never confronted him, not like this. What did you just say? I said, I repeated, you've hit me before? He grabbed my arm so violently my skin burned. Perfect. The camera captured every second. Let go, I said again. He squeezed harder. You want to act tough, Riley? You want to see what tough looks like? Then he pulled back, fist tightening. I let him think he had the advantage. Let him think he was in control. Right until the moment he swung. I blocked, grabbed his wrist, twisted, pinned him to the bed with a maneuver every self-defense instructor teaches women on day one. He let out a yell, part pain, part shock. I leaned in close. You should be very, very careful with me. His eyes shook, true fear for the first time. I let go. He scrambled up like the bed burned him. You're insane, he whispered. You're actually insane. No, I corrected, smoothing my sleeve. I'm awake. The phone call. 2 hours later, Damien made his move. He called the police. Exactly what I wanted him to do. He told them his wife had become violent, unpredictable, that he feared for his safety. Standard abuser tactic. I greeted the officers calmly with a folder already prepared. Officers, I said, he leaves bruises. He threatens me. And today, he tried to hit me. Then I showed the footage. His hand around my arm, his fist raised, his words. The older officer's face hardened. Mr. Carter, he said, turning, you're lucky we're not arresting you today. Damien's mouth fell open. Patricia sputtered. Jenna turned pale. The officers left a formal warning and listed the house as a watch address. Exactly what I needed. Exactly what he feared. Damien didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. He stalked around the house like a caged animal, jaw tight, fingers flexing like he was rehearsing violence he didn't quite dare to use yet. Patricia flitted after him, hissing in low, poisonous tones. Jenna lurked on the couch, scrolling her phone, shooting me looks that hovered somewhere between hatred and fear. They weren't used to Riley having a spine. They didn't know what to do with her now that she had one. Good. I wanted them off balance. By evening, the atmosphere in the house felt like storm clouds pressed right up against the roof. The tension was thick enough to chew. Elias sat on the floor, quietly rolling toy cars back and forth. Every muscle in his tiny body braced for the next explosion. I sat down beside him. Hey, buddy, I said softly. What are you building? He shrugged without looking up. Just cars. I don't want to be loud. The way he said it, matter of fact, like it was a rule carved into stone, made something inside me ache. You're allowed to make noise, I said. You're a kid. His eyes jumped to mine, wide and wary. Daddy doesn't like noise, he whispered. He says it gives him a headache. Grandma says I have to be good. Translation, silent, invisible, small. I picked up one of the toy cars and ran it along the rug. Well, Daddy's not here right now, I said, and Grandma doesn't make the rules for your whole life. His little brow furrowed. Who does? You, I said, bumping the car against his. You and Mommy. And someday, when you're bigger, you'll see that loud laughs aren't bad. They're proof you're alive. He stared at me for a long time. Then, in the softest whisper, you sound different. My throat tightened. Different how? Like you're not scared, he said. I smiled. A real one this time. I'm not, I said. Not of him. He bit his lip. I wish I wasn't, he whispered back. You won't be, I thought. One way or another, I'm making sure of that. The muscle around 8 that night. The doorbell rang. Patricia's head snapped up. Jenna jumped to her feet. Damien was in the living room pretending to watch TV, but his body leaned forward before he even rose, like he'd been waiting for this exact sound. I stood in the kitchen, drying a plate very slowly, watching. Damien opened the door. A large man stepped in, broad shoulders, heavy boots, neck thick as a tree trunk, tattoos peeking out from under his sleeves. If I had to guess, I'd say late 30s. Gym strong, not athlete strong. Too many chain restaurant beers. Too much anger simmering under his skin. This was the kind of man men like Damien called when they were too cowardly to do their own dirty work. Yo, the man said, slapping Damien on the back. You said you needed a favor. Damien glanced over his shoulder at me. Our eyes met, and I understood. He hadn't called a friend. He'd called enforcement. Patricia hurried to the hallway, putting on a fake smile. Good to see you again, Troy, she said. Troy? Of course, he had a name that sounded like he'd gotten into fistfights in bars for fun. Jenna appeared behind her, smirking. This her? Troy asked, his gaze sliding past Damien and landing on me. He looked me up and down like I was furniture, something to be moved or broken. Damien gave a tight nod. Yeah, he said. She's been out of line. Needs a reminder. Troy cracked his knuckles. Say less. He walked into the living room like he owned it, positioning himself between me and the hallway, blocking my exit, making himself big on purpose. I set the plate down and dried my hands calmly on a towel. Evidence. Always evidence. The little camera in the corner above the cabinet blinked once. Still recording. Riley, Damien called, pretending at softness. Can you come here a second? I stepped closer, bare feet silent against the tile, every sense razor alert. Who's this? I asked. Troy, the man said before Damien could answer. Friend of the family. Translation, hired intimidation. I don't remember you from the wedding, I said lightly. We go way back, Troy replied. College days. He took a step toward me. You know, sometimes a man needs help straightening things out in his home, keeping things in order. I tilted my head. You do that often? I asked. His grin was slow and ugly. Often enough. Patricia folded her arms, lips pressed into a thin line of triumph. Jenna leaned against the wall, chewing gum like she was settling in for a show. They really thought they were about to watch me get put in my place. I felt something like a cold flame rise in my chest. All right, I thought. Let's give them a show. The lesson Troy stepped so close I could smell stale sweat and cheap cologne. You've been stressing Damien out, he said, disrespecting him, snapping back, grabbing him. That doesn't fly. He reached out and poked my shoulder with two thick fingers. Women gotta learn when to shut their mouths and do what they're told. I smiled. Is that right? Yeah, he said. That's right. I let my body relax, made my shoulders droop just a little. Let him see what he wanted to see. Compliance. Then, as he reached to grab my arm, I moved. Weight on the balls of my feet. Hands up. Fist loose. Training sliding into place like a second skin. Troy grabbed. I rotated my wrist, breaking his grip. Used his forward momentum to drag him off balance. Pivoted, planted my hip, and flipped him over it. He crashed onto the coffee table. Wood split with a deafening crack. Glass shattered. Patricia screamed. Jenna yelped. Troy lay there stunned, arms flailing for purchase, breath knocked out of him. I stepped around the debris and stood over him. Next time, I said coldly, pick a target you can handle. His eyes widened, like it was just dawning on him that this hadn't gone according to script. You crazy, he wheezed. Maybe, I said. Or maybe your mistake was assuming quiet means weak. I gestured toward the camera in the corner. By the way, you just committed assault, I said. On a homeowner. In her own living room. On video. Patricia blanched. Damien stiffened. Assault, I continued. Trespassing. Potential witness intimidation if I really wanted to get creative with the charges. I leaned down closer to Troy's face. Now get out of my house. Something in my tone must have reached that instinct most men like him live by. The one that can smell real danger. He scrambled to his feet, stumbled over broken wood, and bolted for the door. Patricia shouted after him. Damien did too. Neither of them went after him. They both turned to me instead. You've lost your mind, Patricia hissed. You just made things worse, Jenna snarled. Did I? I asked coolly. Damien's eyes cut to where Troy had stood, then back to me. He saw the broken table, the fearful expressions on his mother and sister's faces, and the faint blinking light of the camera in the corner. He understood. Maybe not everything, but enough. Enough to know the game was changing, and he wasn't winning anymore. The plot. They waited until they thought I was asleep. That was their mistake. Abusers always underestimate the people they break. They assume once someone has been small, they will always stay small. They forget that even small things can grow teeth. Around midnight, I lay in bed with the lights off, listening. The hallway creaked softly. Whispered voices slipped under Riley's bedroom door. "It's getting out of control," Patricia whispered. "She's dangerous." "I told you," Jenna hissed back. "She's going to ruin everything. Damien could get arrested." Damien's voice cut through their hissing like a dull blade. "So what do you want me to do?" he said. "Call the cops again? You saw what happened today. They took her side." "Because I'd given them reason to. Because I understood how evidence works and how stories are framed. Because this time, the narrative belonged to us, not to him." Patricia lowered her voice. "We have to think bigger," she said. My muscles tensed. "Bigger how?" Damien asked. "We make her the problem," Patricia said. "We prove she's unstable, violent, dangerous." "She already looks that way," Jenna muttered. "She threw Troy through a table." "That man was an idiot," Patricia snapped. "But we can still use what's happening. We just need to push her a little further. Make it look like a breakdown." Damien didn't respond. Patricia continued. "We get her committed," she said. "Psych ward, emergency evaluation. Once she's in, you file for divorce. Full custody. You and Elias stay here. She's removed. Clean. Simple." Jenna sucked in a breath. "Can we even do that?" "We can if we do it right," Patricia said. "We tell them she's been hearing voices, threatening the family, hurting herself, hurting Elias." My hands curled into fists under the blanket. She was willing to lie about child abuse to secure control. Of course she was. Women like Patricia didn't see lines. They saw obstacles. "And how do we get her there?" Damien asked. "She'll never go willingly." Patricia made a soft, dismissive noise. "We don't ask her," she said. "We sedate her." My heart thudded once, hard. "Sleeping pills," she went on. "Crushed in her coffee. Enough to drop her. When she won't wake up, we call an ambulance. Tell them we're worried. That she's been acting erratically. Crying, ranting. We say we're afraid she'll hurt herself or Elias," Jenna murmured. "They'll put her on a hold." "At least 72 hours, Patricia said. "Maybe longer if we act concerned enough. While she's locked away, we move fast. Lawyer up, file papers. Say she's unstable and a danger to the child." She paused. "By the time she gets out," Patricia finished, "it'll be too late." Even from behind the door, I could feel Damien hesitate. "This could backfire," he said. "It's the only way," Patricia replied. "Unless you want to risk jail. Is that what you want? You want your son visiting you behind glass while your crazy wife takes everything?" No mention of Riley as an actual person. No concern for the woman they were planning to drug and remove. To them, she was an obstacle, an inconvenience, something to be neutralized. My jaw ached from clenching so hard. I breathed slowly through my nose. In, out, even, controlled. Emotion was a luxury I couldn't afford in that moment. I needed strategy. I needed precision. I needed them to walk right into their own trap. "Fine," Damien said at last. "Tomorrow, then." "Tomorrow," Patricia agreed. "I'll do the coffee. She'll never see it coming." A bitter laugh nearly escaped me. We would see about that. The coffee morning light filtered through the curtains in a hazy gray wash. My alarm buzzed softly on Riley's nightstand. I turned it off and lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling. Today was day 3. The final day of the promise I'd made to Riley in my office. "Give me 3 days," I told her. 3 days of your life, and I'll make sure he never touches you again. I swung my legs out of bed. In the kitchen, Patricia was already moving like a general, preparing for battle. Coffee was brewing. Cups were lined up. Her features were arranged into a familiar mask of tight concern. "Morning," she said. I watched her carefully. "Morning," I replied. She poured a mug, back turned slightly, just enough to block my view of her hands. But she forgot about reflections. The chrome toaster sitting on the counter gave me everything I needed. 3 small white pills, crushed, stirred slowly into my mug. She turned back around with the fakest, most saccharine smile I'd ever seen. "You look tired," she said. "Rough night?" "Something like that," I replied. She extended the mug. "Here, this will help." I took it, wrapped my hands around the ceramic, brought it to my lips, let the steam touch my face, didn't drink. If she was watching closely, she might have noticed the lack of tilt, the way the liquid never actually moved. But Patricia saw what she wanted to see. She saw control. She saw victory. She saw her plan working. So she turned away. "Don't forget Elias's lunch," she said, "and try not to start any fights before noon." I carried the mug out of the kitchen, walked down the hall, paused beside a dying houseplant tucked in the corner, a peace lily of all things, wilted and browning from neglect. I tipped the cup slowly. Coffee soaked into the soil. The crushed pills disappeared under the damp earth. Then I refilled the mug with plain water from the tap in the bathroom, just enough to leave a ring at the top like I'd taken a long drink. When I came back to the kitchen, Patricia glanced at the mug. Her shoulders relaxed. She looked pleased with herself. She had no idea the only thing she'd successfully drugged was a nearly dead plant. "Feeling any better?" she asked an hour later, voice dripping false concern. I widened my eyes just slightly. "Actually," I said, letting my limbs go loose, letting my speech slow, I think I need to lie down." She watched me closely. "Of course, dear," she said. "Go rest. I'll keep an eye on things." I walked down the hallway with deliberately uneven steps, stumbled just a little for effect. In the mirror near the stairs, my reflection caught my eyes. Focused, clear, ready, showtime. I made it halfway down the hallway before letting my body go slack in just the right way. Shoulders loose, head tilting forward, feet shuffling like they were made of wet sandbags. Acting dazed wasn't difficult. I'd watched enough victims testify on the stand to mimic the 1,000-yard stare with perfect precision. From behind me, Patricia's whisper slid through the air like a knife. "It's working." Of course she thought it was. She'd spent years underestimating Riley. She had no idea Riley's sister was the one walking the halls now. I let my body slump onto the living room couch, lowered my eyelids, slowed my breathing. Then I went completely still. Within seconds, the house erupted into motion. "Check her pulse," Patricia barked. "See if she's breathing right." Footsteps scurried toward me, Jenna's cheap flip-flop slapping the tile. "She's out," Jenna whispered, bending close enough for me to smell her sour breath. "Totally out. Lying unconscious while 2 women who nearly destroyed your sister hover over you? Unsettling, but necessary." Damien came into the room next. His steps were heavier, deliberate. He knelt beside me, putting on the performance of a lifetime. "Riley," he said loudly, voice dripping with staged panic. "Can you hear me?" I didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't breathe too deeply. He shook my shoulder once, hard. Patricia gasped at the lack of response. Perfect. "Call 911, she said. "We need to get her evaluated before she hurts herself. Or Elias." There it was. The lie they decided to use. Mental instability, self-harm, danger to the child. The kind of accusations that stick even when disproven. Jenna grabbed the phone. "I'll call," she said. "We'll say she's been acting violent. We'll say she attacked Damien. She's losing control." Damien stood up, running a hand through his hair dramatically. "Tell them I'm scared for Elias's safety," he added. I could barely keep my jaw from tightening. He was weaponizing his own child. The child he'd neglected. The child he'd scared. The child he'd slapped. But pretending unconsciousness meant stillness, silence, patience. Their downfall had to look like their own idea. "Call the ambulance," Patricia said again, urgency rising. But before Jenna could dial, something else happened. A soft knock sounded at the front door. 3 quick taps, the kind of knock you only hear from police officers. The police arrive, earlier than anyone expected. Damien froze. Patricia froze. Jenna froze. No one had called them yet, which meant good, very good. One of the officers from yesterday had likely flagged the address. Domestic disturbance, potential abuse victim, high risk. That kind of wording tends to stay on the radar. Damien cleared his throat. "Just ignore it," he whispered. "Let them go away." The knock came again, harder. "Police," a voice called. "We need to speak with the occupants of this residence." Patricia went pale. Jenna muttered, "Oh my God." Damien swore under his breath. Then he turned to them. "Stick to the story," he said sharply. "She had a breakdown. She's unstable. You two saw everything." Everything, meaning the imaginary narrative they'd manufactured. He squared his shoulders, forced his expression into practiced concern, and opened the door. 2 officers stood there. Officer Ramos, the older veteran, and the younger rookie from yesterday. Ramos scanned the house behind Damien, eyes sharp as broken glass. "Sir," he said, "we got a welfare check request for your wife." Damien blinked. What?" Ramos stepped forward. "Mind if we come in?" Damien's jaw ticked. "Actually, now's not a good—" Ramos brushed past him like he wasn't even there. "Oh, this is a good time," he said. "We need to make sure everyone in this house is safe." Behind him, the rookie followed quickly, notebook already in hand. Damien shot a frantic look at Patricia. "Stick to the story." Patricia nodded and approached the officers with trembling hands. "Oh, thank goodness you're here," she said, voice trembling with absolute Academy Award level fake distress. "My daughter-in-law, she's not well. She's been acting out. We're scared." Ramos's expression didn't change. "Where is she?" Patricia pointed to the couch where I lay limp and still. "She passed out. We think she might have taken something." Ramos walked toward me. Patricia kept talking. "She threatened Damien. She threatened us. She was screaming, 'Lies, lies, layered lies.'" Ramos crouched beside me. "Ma'am," he said, voice steady but probing. "Can you hear me?" I didn't answer. The rookie stood behind him, writing notes with wide eyes. "She's completely unresponsive," Patricia said urgently. "We're terrified." Ramos looked up at her, slowly, deliberately. "You're terrified," he repeated. "Yes, she's unstable," Jenna chimed in eagerly. "She threw a man through a table last night." Ramos's brow lifted. "Oh? And who was this man?" Just a friend," Jenna said. Damien stepped in quickly. He was helping calm her down." Ramos nodded once, then turned back to me. "Ma'am," he repeated, louder, "if you can hear me, I need you to respond." I kept still. He waved a hand in front of my face, checked my pulse, lifted one eyelid. He leaned in. "Okay," he said, voice raised slightly. "I'm going to need medical to evaluate her." Patricia sighed in relief. "Yes, please." Then, Officer Ramos looked directly at the little camera in the corner. He'd spotted it, and I watched him, through half-lowered lashes, make the mental connection. If there was a camera, there was footage he could request, footage that might contradict everything the family had just claimed. He stood up slowly. "Ma'am," he said, turning to Patricia, You said she was screaming? Yes. And acting violent? Yes, officer. It was terrifying. And she attacked you? Patricia hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. But Ramos caught it. Yes, she said quickly. Ramos scanned the room. Interesting, he said, because the neighbors reported no screaming, no disturbance, not a sound. Patricia's jaw tightened. We kept it contained. Ramos nodded again, then turned to Damien. Sir, can you tell me exactly what happened today? Damien swallowed. She's just not herself. Mood swings, violent episodes. I'm afraid she's going to hurt our child. Ramos looked between him. Patricia, Jenna, then down at me, then up at the blinking red light of the camera again. Okay, Ramos said slowly. Here's what we're going to do. He motioned to the rookie. Officer Lee, check the kitchen trash. Look for any medication bottles, powder residue, or pill fragments. Patricia stiffened. Damien's head snapped around. Why would you? Ramos cut him off. Because your mother said she might have taken something, Patricia sputtered. Yes, that's right. But it was too late. The rookie was already digging, rattling, opening drawers. Then, Sir, the rookie called. Everyone turned. He held up a small paper towel with unmistakable residue on it. White, powdery, fresh. Found this in the sink drain, he said, eyes sharp. Looks like crushed medication. Recently rinsed. Patricia staggered backward. I don't know what that is. Ramos looked directly at her. You don't? No. Damien stepped in. Officer, I think you're misunderstanding. Ramos raised a hand. I don't misunderstand much. Silence. Thick. Electric. Damning. Finally, Ramos spoke again. Ma'am, he said to Patricia, I'm going to ask this once. Who crushed the pills? No one. She was unconscious, Ramos said. So unless she sleepwalked to the kitchen, opened a bottle, crushed 3 tablets, and poured them into her own coffee before passing out. Someone else did this. Damien's face drained of color. Jenna took a step back. And Patricia, she crumbled. She needed calming, she screamed. She was losing her mind. We were trying to help her. Ramos exhaled sharply. Attempted sedation without consent, he said. Possible poisoning. Coercive control. False statements. He looked around the room one more time. Then he looked at me. Ma'am, he said, not loudly, but firmly. I know you're awake. The house went silent. Patricia's mouth fell open. Jenna froze. Damien stared like I'd risen from the dead. Slowly, very slowly, I opened my eyes, lifted my head, sat up. Officer Ramos didn't look surprised. Of course he didn't. He'd known the moment he saw the camera. I think, he said calmly, we need to have a real conversation now. I nodded once. Officer, I said, voice steady, I'd like to give my statement. Damien inhaled sharply. Patricia whispered, Oh my God. Jenna stumbled backward into the wall. I stood up, straightened my posture, and finally, looked Damien directly in the eye. This ends today. I stood slowly, methodically, letting every bone in my body rise with purpose. 3 days of planning. 3 days of control. 3 days of pretending to be Riley. And now the moment had arrived. Officer Ramos folded his arms across his chest, giving me space to speak. The rookie, Officer Lee, hovered with his notebook ready, his eyes sharp with curiosity and confusion. Damien took a step toward me. Riley, he said, voice trembling with anger and denial. Whatever you're thinking. I cut him off with a single raised hand. Don't, I said. My voice was calm, dead calm. The kind of calm that terrifies men like Damien. Jenna pressed herself against the wall behind the TV. Patricia clutched her necklace like prayer might start working again. Officer Ramos motioned to the couch. "Ma'am," he said, "if you feel comfortable, please sit while you speak with us." "No," I said. "I'm fine standing." He nodded slowly, respectfully. "Okay, then whenever you're ready." I looked directly at Damien, right into the eyes of the man who'd broken my sister. "My name," I said evenly, "is not Riley Carter." His eyes widened, just a fraction. Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. Jenna muttered, "What the—" Officer Ramos didn't even blink. "I suspected as much," he said quietly. I took a breath. "My name is Alana Brooks. I'm Riley's sister, and for the last 3 days, I've been here in her place." Shock rippled through the room. Damien shook his head violently. "You're lying." "I'm not," I said coolly. "Your wife is safe. She's with me, away from you, exactly where she should have been years ago." "You—" His voice cracked. "You tricked me." I raised an eyebrow. "Good. You needed tricking." Ramos cleared his throat gently. "Ms. Brooks, you said 3 days. Why? What's happened?" "This," I said, sweeping my hand around the room, "has happened for 4 years, under their watch, under their roof, and no one did anything to stop it." Damien turned red. "That's not true." I kept talking. "Officer, while pretending to be Riley, I documented everything in this house. Every threat, every bruise you just saw on her body, the rope burns, the choking marks, the cigarette burns, the assaults." Officer Lee's pen flew across his notepad. Damien sputtered. "You can't prove any—" I pointed directly at the camera in the corner. "That camera says otherwise." Patricia whirled toward it, horror creeping across her face. "You recorded us?" "Yes," I said. "Everything." "That's illegal." "Incorrect," I replied smoothly. "The house is in Riley's name. She gave me consent. Legally, the recordings are hers, and thus admissible." Patricia paled so fast she looked ghost-like. "But this is an invasion." "No," I said. "This is called evidence." Ramos stepped forward, voice steady but firm. "Mr. Carter," he said, "your wife's sister implies there's recorded footage of attempted sedative use, verbal threats, and possible domestic assault. I need to ask, do you deny that?" Damien's mouth opened, closed, opened. Nothing came out. Because for the first time, the truth had him cornered. The confession. Through silence. People think confessions always come in the form of words. They don't. Sometimes guilt sits in a man's eyes. Sometimes it trembles in his hands. Sometimes it leaks out in silence so loud even the walls can hear it. Damien's silence was deafening, and Ramos heard every second of it. Officer Lee broke the tension. "Ms. Brooks," he asked, "why did you come here instead of reporting immediately to authorities?" Fair question. One I'd anticipated. "One reason," I said, "because the system fails women like Riley every day. If she had reported this alone, without evidence, Damien would have been released on bail, come home angrier than ever, and Riley might not have lived through the week." Ramos nodded slowly. "You're not wrong," he admitted. Damien threw up his hands. "You're all insane," he shouted. "She's lying. She's manipulating all of you." Then he turned to me, eyes blazing. "Riley didn't want you here. She didn't want your help." I smiled coldly. "Damien," I said, "Riley didn't want to die." That shut him up. The pill trap snaps. Shut. Patricia found her voice again in the worst way possible. "This is all her fault," she screamed. "She provoked everything. She's been unstable for weeks. And Officer Ramos snapped his head toward her. "Ma'am," he said sharply, "we found crushed medication in the sink. Did you, or did you not, attempt to drug your daughter-in-law?" Patricia's voice shook. I thought it would calm her." "So you did crush the pills?" I didn't mean harm. You administered sedatives without her consent? No. Yes. Ramos wrote something down. Ma'am, you understand that's a chargeable offense? Patricia's eyes shot to Damien. He stepped back, didn't lift a finger to defend her. Typical. Jenna chimed in. We were just trying to help. Ramos cut her off. You were trying to incapacitate a victim. Classic domestic abuser enabler. Jenna shut her mouth so quickly her teeth clicked. My statement. I faced the officers. I have recordings, I said. All of them. And we will need those, Ramos said. They're on a secure drive, I replied, along with timestamps, footage from the last 3 days, audio recordings, and photographs documenting 4 years of abuse. Damien swallowed hard. 4 years, I repeated. 4 years of Riley being beaten, strangled, threatened, humiliated, isolated. My voice never cracked. It didn't need to. Cold truth is often sharper than rage. Officer Lee looked sick. Officer Ramos exhaled slowly. Miss Brooks, he said, based on what you've described, I'm going to need to take formal written statements from you. Immediately. I nodded. Of course. Then I turned back to Damien. And as for you, he flinched, you should start packing a bag. The turning point. Damien glared. You can't take my son from me. A dark calm settled over me. I'm not taking him, I said. Your actions are. Officer Ramos cleared his throat. Given the evidence described and pending review, custody will have to be reevaluated by Child Protective Services. Safety of the child is our first priority. Jenna exploded. This is insane. She's a stranger pretending to be Riley. She could be crazy. I didn't look at her. Instead, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my ID. Alana Brooks, Assistant District Attorney. The rookie's eyes widened. Ramos let out a low whistle. So that's how you knew exactly which lines to walk, he said. I slid the badge back into my pocket. I don't break the law, I said quietly. I use it. Damien's face contorted. You set us up. I stepped closer. No, I said. You set yourselves up. I just turned on the lights so everyone could see it. Silence swallowed the room. Thick, final. I looked at Officer Ramos. I'm ready to give my full report. He nodded. Let's step outside, he said. The 3 of them will remain here until we've finished. I walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard Patricia sobbing, Jenna pacing, Damien cursing under his breath. But I didn't look back. Predators don't deserve backward glances. I stepped into the sunlight. For the first time in years, someone in that house was finally free. The sunlight outside felt almost unreal after everything that had happened inside that house. For a moment, I let myself breathe. Slow, steady, controlled. Officer Ramos and Officer Lee walked beside me toward the patrol car parked at the curb. Neighbors peeked through blinds and half-opened doors, pretending they weren't watching. Everyone always pretends, until the truth becomes too loud to ignore. We stopped beside the car. Ms. Brooks, Ramos said, before anything else, I need to be clear. What you've done here is unconventional. That's one word for it, Lee muttered. I smiled faintly. Unconventional tends to work better than the standard system for women like my sister. Ramos gave a slow nod. That's what I wanted to talk about, he said. You didn't come in here guns blazing. You didn't seek vigilante revenge. You built a case. I built protection, I corrected. The case is a bonus. He studied me for a long moment. You're good at this, he said. I'm good at justice, I replied. Sometimes those are the same thing, he said. Sometimes not. Agreed. He held out a clipboard. Let's start your statement. Filing the truth. For the next hour, I detailed everything from the moment Riley arrived at my office to the moment I revealed myself in the living room. Every threat, every bruise, every shove, every word. I described the cigarette burns, the rope marks, the years of silent horror, the manipulation, the isolation, the financial control, the threats. Officer Lee wrote furiously. Officer Ramos recorded audio for backup. After I finished, Ramos lowered his pen. All right, he said. I'm contacting CPS and the Domestic Violence Task Force. They need to review your evidence immediately. I have the drive in my bag, I said. We'll need to make a copy, he replied, and we'll need a forensic tech to verify the timestamps and authenticity. Everything is clean, I assured him. I believe you, but protocol is protocol. He glanced toward the house. Are you prepared for what happens next? I followed his gaze. Damien pacing behind the blinds. Patricia crying. Jenna looking like she'd been hit by a truck. Yes, I said. I've been prepared for 3 days. No, Ramos said gently. I mean long term. I looked him dead in the eyes. I won't stop until Riley and Elias are safe. Fully. He nodded. That's what I needed to hear. Back inside the house. When we walked back into the house, the air had shifted again, this time toward panic. Damien rushed forward. You can't take my son away, he said to Ramos, voice cracking. This is all lies. I never laid a hand on Riley. Ramos didn't even look at him. Sir, he said, until Child Protective Services completes an emergency evaluation, you are not to be alone with the child. Understood? Damien's mouth fell open. What? That's my son. Officer Lee stepped between them. With the evidence presented, he's a protected minor until further notice. Patricia gasped. You can't do this. She's twisting everything. I stepped in. No, I said. The bruises on Riley's body twisted everything. You just helped shape the rest. Patricia lunged toward me, but Lee held out his arm, blocking her easily. You need to step back, ma'am, he warned. She shook with fury, but didn't move forward again. Damien pointed at me, hand trembling. You ruined everything! I stepped closer until only a foot separated us. No, Damien, I said softly. You ruined everything the first time you hit her. His face turned red, anger, shame, panic intertwining like a perfect storm. You tricked me, he whispered. You set me up. I leaned in. You set yourself up years ago. The phone call that changed everything. Ramos's radio crackled. Dispatch to Unit 12. He lifted it to his shoulder. Go ahead. CPS has a team en route. ETA 10 minutes. CPS? Already mobilizing? Good. Patricia sank into a chair, muttering hysterically about injustice and ingratitude. Jenna paced, clutching her phone like it might save her. Damien collapsed onto the couch, head in his hands. He looked small for the first time, not powerful, not imposing, just a coward who'd been stripped of armor. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching him break. It was quiet, not satisfying, not thrilling, just quiet. Because justice rarely feels like fireworks. It feels like breath finally entering lungs that have been empty for years. Elias, the moment CPS arrived with 2 specialists and a guardian ad litem. The energy in the room changed again. Damien jumped up. You can't take him. He's my son. One of the specialists held up a hand. No one is taking him permanently. This is a temporary protective measure while we assess the safety of the home. And right now, I said, this home is anything but safe. Damien glared at me. You don't get to decide that. No, I agreed, but they do. The guardian ad litem stepped forward, calm, professional, compassionate. Where's Elias? She asked. Upstairs, alone. Probably scared. I led her up the stairs myself. When we opened his bedroom door, Elias looked up from the corner where he'd been coloring quietly on the floor. His eyes widened when he saw me. Auntie? I knelt down. Hey, baby, I said. These people are here to keep you safe. They're friends. He hesitated, looked at the unfamiliar adults, then at me. You're not leaving, right? My heart twisted. No, I said. I'm right here. The guardian ad litem knelt beside me. Elias, can you come with us downstairs? We just want to talk. He nodded slowly, but before he got up, he leaned toward me and whispered, Daddy scares me. It was quiet, barely audible, but the guardian ad litem heard it. Her eyes softened in that heartbreaking way only seasoned child advocates have. That's enough, she said quietly. We've heard everything we need. The recommendation, downstairs, she pulled Ramos aside. I watched their lips move. I already knew what she was recommending. And when she turned back toward Damien and Patricia, her face confirmed it. Effective immediately, she said. Elias will be staying in protective custody until he can be reunited with his mother. Damien shot to his feet. Absolutely not. Ramos stepped in immediately. Sir, sit down. You can't just take him. He's not being taken, the guardian ad litem said calmly. He's being protected. Patricia lunged forward. We raised that boy. We know what's best for him. The guardian's expression didn't waver. You know what's best for yourselves, and what's easiest, not what's safest. Silence, tense, heavy, defeated. Then Damien whispered the words I'd been waiting for. What happens to me now? I looked at him. For the first time, I said, you face consequences. The removal. When the CPS team escorted Elias out, he held my hand tightly. Where's Mommy? He asked. She's safe, I said. She'll be with you soon. He nodded, trusting me in that instinctive way children trust adults who finally show them safety. As he climbed into the CPS car, he turned and waved at me. Bye, Auntie. I swallowed hard. See you soon, baby. The doors closed. The car pulled away. Patricia collapsed onto the floor, sobbing. Jenna sank into a chair, shaking. Damien stared out the window like a man watching his life disappear. Which it was, piece by piece. His job, at risk. His custody, gone. His reputation, crumbling. His control, dead. And this was only the beginning. I stepped toward him. For 4 years, I said, Riley lived in terror. But starting today, he looked at me, eyes full of something between hatred and disbelief. She doesn't have to be afraid anymore. And with that, I walked out of the house, into a world where the truth was finally louder than his violence. When I stepped out of that house, the air tasted different, lighter, sharper, like the atmosphere after a storm finally breaks and the pressure lifts. I walked straight to my car, sat for a moment, and let myself feel the reality of what had just happened. Elias was safe. Riley was safe. Damien was exposed. Patricia was cornered. Jenna was unraveling. For the first time in 4 years, the scales of justice had tilted in the right direction. But my work wasn't finished. Not yet. I drove directly to my apartment, where Riley and Elias would soon be reunited, and where my sister waited, terrified and hopeful in equal measure. When I opened the door, Riley was on the couch, hugging her knees to her chest. The moment she saw my face, she stood. It's done, I said. She didn't ask what done meant. She didn't need to. She collapsed into my arms, and for the first time in years, she wept like someone who finally understood she wasn't alone. Is Elias okay? She whispered. He's safe. CPS is bringing him here within the hour. Her body shook with relief so intense it nearly knocked the breath out of me. You did it, she cried. You really did it. No, I said softly. We did it. You survived. I just helped you finish. Check mark. CPS reunites mother and son. It didn't take long. An hour later, or a gentle knock echoed through the apartment. I opened the door just as Elias ran forward, straight into Riley's arms. "Mommy!" Riley fell to her knees, clutching him so tightly I thought she might fuse them together forever. He cried into her shoulder. She cried into his hair. The CPS specialist watched quietly, hands clasped over her chest. "Thank you," Riley whispered through tears. The specialist shook her head. "You don't owe me thanks," she said. "You owe it to yourself for getting help. Your sister did a brave thing, but so did you." I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. Elias pulled back and touched Riley's cheek. "Mommy," he whispered, "you look happy." Riley smiled through tears, pressing her forehead to his. "I am," she said, "and I'm never letting you go again." If justice had a sound, it was this. Two hearts beating again after years of being silenced. The evidence drop. I excused myself, grabbed my laptop bag, and headed to the kitchen table. I plugged the external drive into my computer and began organizing the footage into labeled folders. Day 1, threats and harassment. Day 2, physical intimidation. Day 3, attempted sedation camera footage. Hallway audio recordings. Kitchen, bedroom, full timeline. Documented injuries, financial statements, gambling plus debt. Witness reports, neighbors. Everything meticulously labeled, time-stamped, categorized. When the CPS team returned with their case officer, I slid the drive across the table. "This," I said, "is everything." The officer blinked, surprised. "This is significant documentation." "Because I knew the system wouldn't protect her unless I built the case myself," I said. She nodded slowly. "Miss Brooks," she said carefully, "I've been doing this 20 years. I've never seen a family member come this prepared." 4 years of abuse means 4 years of being ignored, I replied, "and I don't let people ignore what they shouldn't." The officer took the drive gently, like it was evidence in a homicide, which, in many ways, it was, because Damien hadn't just killed Riley's peace, he nearly killed her soul. And this time, the law would see it. The charges 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. Officer Ramos. "Ms. Brooks," he said without preamble, "I've reviewed your footage with our tech." "And? It's airtight?" I exhaled. Ramos continued. "I've also spoken with the DA's office. They're drafting charges now." "List them," I said. 4 counts of domestic assault, strangulation, felony, child endangerment, attempted poisoning, conspiracy to commit medical fraud, coercive control, witness intimidation, verbal threats, harassment, destruction of property, financial abuse, emotional abuse. And that's just the beginning. More could be added after review. I closed my eyes. Finally the law had teeth. "And the family?" I asked. "Patricia and Jenna are facing charges too. Accessory to assault, attempted poisoning, conspiracy, failure to protect a minor." I opened my eyes. "And Damien?" "We're issuing a warrant tonight." I smiled coldly. "Good." There was a pause before Ramos spoke again. "Ms. Brooks, if more families had someone like you, we'd see a lot fewer victims. It shouldn't require a sister willing to risk prison to protect a woman from the man she married," I said quietly. "No," he agreed. "But until the system catches up, women like you are the reason people survive." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I ended the call and looked at Riley. She was sitting on the couch next to Elias, stroking his hair while he watched cartoons. Her eyes were still swollen from crying, but she looked peaceful. For the first time in years. Peaceful. "Everything okay?" she asked softly. I nodded. "Better than okay." She smiled. "You're shaking," she said. "Are you all right?" I sat beside her. "I'm just," I exhaled, finally breathing again. The arrest. That night, around 10:45 p.m., while Riley slept curled around Elias like she was afraid he'd disappear, My phone buzzed again. Ramos. It's done, he said. Damien had been arrested, handcuffed in his own living room. Patricia screaming. Jenna crying. Damien claiming innocence, until the cuffs clicked shut. He was transported to county jail. He'd face arraignment in the morning, and likely zero bail due to the severity of charges. I thanked Ramos, hung up, and sat back on the couch, exhaling slowly. The storm was ending, but the healing was just beginning. Dawn of freedom. The next morning, Riley woke early. She found me in the kitchen drinking coffee. She approached me quietly. Then she whispered, "Is it over?" I looked at her face, her eyes, her fragile hope, and for the first time I could answer honestly. "Yes," I said. "It's finally over." Riley broke, but this time she didn't break from fear. She broke from freedom. She cried into my shoulder like someone mourning the life she lost and welcoming the one she'd get back. Elias padded into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. "Mommy?" he said sleepily. Riley lifted him onto her hip and held him tight. "Baby," she whispered, "we're safe now." When he smiled, it was small, but real, and that alone made every moment worth it. The beginning of their new life. By noon, we had filed emergency custody papers, requested permanent restraining orders, started the divorce process, scheduled trauma counseling for Riley and Elias, contacted her employer for leave, set up a financial plan for her independence, changed locks and upgraded security, booked her into a survivors support group, secured everything she needed to rebuild her life. Riley hugged me from behind as I filled out paperwork. "What would I have done without you?" she whispered. I turned, cupping her face. "You weren't supposed to do it alone," I said. "No one should have to survive alone." And in that moment, I saw light returning to her eyes, slowly but unmistakably. Riley and Elias stayed with me for the next week. Not because they had to, but because freedom feels strange at first. When you've spent years tiptoeing through your own home, your brain needs time to understand that the danger is gone. For days, Riley jumped at small noises, flinched when someone closed a door too hard, woke up shaking in the middle of the night. But each day, I watched fear loosen its grip on her. Bit by bit, breath by breath, the bruises faded, but the strength she gained replaced them. Elias began laughing again, drawing again, sleeping peacefully again. Their healing wasn't loud. It was soft, gradual, human, and it was beautiful. Damien's fate. Damien's arraignment hearing happened 3 days later. I didn't attend. Riley didn't need to see him. But Officer Ramos sent me the update. Denied bail, multiple felony charges, filed CPS supporting full custody for Riley prosecutors pursuing maximum sentencing. His mother, Patricia, faced her own charges: accessory, conspiracy, child endangerment. Jenna, too. 3 people who once held all the power now sat in cells or courtrooms, stripped of control, stripped of excuses, stripped of the illusions they'd built. And you know what? I didn't feel an ounce of guilt, not even a flicker. Abuse destroys families. It destroys futures. It destroys children. And sometimes justice looks like handcuffs. Riley's new beginning. 2 weeks after everything happened, Riley stood in my living room holding a set of keys. "Are you sure?" she asked, voice trembling. "Yes," I said. "This apartment is yours now. Elias needs stability. So do you." She looked around the room, her new home, almost afraid to breathe. "Celeste, I don't have words." "You don't need words," I said. "You just need to live." She hugged me, tighter than she ever had in her life. "Thank you," she whispered, "for saving me, for saving my son, for fighting when I couldn't." I shook my head. No, I said softly. You saved yourself the moment you walked into my office. She pulled away, wiping her eyes. Maybe, but you gave me the courage to finish. Elias tugged at her shirt. Mommy, can we paint my room blue? Riley smiled, really smiled. Yes, baby. We can paint it any color you want. Freedom looks like choosing paint colors. It looks like deciding what dinner to make without fear. It looks like sleeping through the night. It looks like a child giggling in the next room. Freedom looks like peace. My reflection. After Riley and Elias settled, I finally sat down alone for the first time in days. The adrenaline had faded. The mission had ended. And all that remained was truth. People think justice feels like triumph. Sometimes it does. But most of the time, it feels like quiet, like breath returning after years of holding it, like hands trembling after they've stayed strong too long, like a heart learning to beat in its natural rhythm again. I thought about the past week, the danger, the risk, the consequences I was willing to face. Would I do it again? Without hesitation? Because here's what the world doesn't understand about abuse. It's not always loud. It's not always visible. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's silent, normal, hidden in routines, hidden in smiles, hidden in apologies. Sometimes the victim doesn't even recognize it until it's too late. And sometimes the system meant to protect them becomes just another locked door. That's why people like me and people like you watching this matter. Because victims don't always need a hero. Sometimes they just need someone who refuses to look away. The final message, thumbnail monologue style. So to everyone watching this right now, if you're in a situation like Riley was, you're not crazy, you're not weak, you're not alone. You deserve safety, you deserve peace, you deserve life. And if someone you love is trapped in silence, ask questions, pay attention, offer help, stand beside them, not above them, listen, believe them. Because silence is the soil where abuse grows. Noise, truth, exposure, that's what kills it. That's what saves lives. The closing line. My name is Celeste Brooks. I'm 32 years old. I'm a criminal defense attorney. And for 3 days, I became my sister so she could become herself again. If this story touched you, if it made you angry or hopeful or brave, hit that like button so YouTube pushes this message to someone who needs it. Subscribe if you want more real stories about survival, justice, and the power of women who refuse to break. And comment below what city you're watching from, because I want to know how far the truth travels. This is Celeste Brooks, signing off. Stay safe, stay loud, stay alive, and remember, when the system fails, love becomes justice.